So welcome to the Healthcare Education Centre at Aberystwyth. We're based near the main campus for the university on the opposite side of the road. So here, my name is Bleddyn. I'm a senior lecturer here in mental health and I'm background in mental health nursing. Worked in the community for quite a while. So I've got my colleague Amanda with me.
Hi everyone. Do you want me to introduce myself, Bleddyn?
Please, yeah, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Jones and I'm the scheme coordinator or the programme lead for both the adult and mental health fields of nursing. So I've been a registered nurse for nearly 30 years. So I'll talk to you a little bit later on about the opportunities that you can go into from undertaking your nursing studies. I'm going to let my colleague Bleddyn go through a short presentation with you, and then we can have a chat at the end. And please do, we're really approachable, honestly. Although we haven't eaten supper, we won't bite you. But absolutely join us and ask some questions. We'll answer them as best we can for you. So I'll speak to you in a bit. Diolch, Bleddyn, thank you.
Sure. And then we've got Chantal with us as well.
Hello everyone, I'm Chantal. I work within academic registry, so I'm one of the support officers. I am based working within the nursing team, so I'm sure our paths will cross if you do happen to apply and get accepted to Aberystwyth. Thank you, Bleddyn.
Thank you, Chantal. So, okay, hopefully I've shared my screen with you. Great, thank you. So why choose nursing at Aberystwyth University? So Rob's already mentioned the webinars we're running, so these are the actual dates. So the second one should be on the 6th of October and facilitated by another of our colleagues, Harad, who can't be with us this evening. And then Amanda, who you've just met, will be running the third one on preparing you for your nursing selection event at Aberystwyth University. So I'm going to talk briefly about the degree programmes. Amanda and I will talk to you about what it's like being a registered nurse. And then, as we've said, we're here then to answer your questions. And we'll give you our contact details just in case you've got any further questions after today. So that'd be an email address that you can send to us. So why become a nurse? So as a registered nurse, you can enjoy a very diverse and rewarding career that can really make a difference for people's lives. And if you think about the role of a nurse, they can act as leaders, carers, clinicians, and it's about taking responsibility for the care they provide to patients. And registered nurses make an important contribution to the promotion of health protection and the prevention of ill health with future registrants needing care and driving initiatives to improve patient care outcomes. So as nurses, we are very much focused on the outcome for the individual. We design care packages that are based around the needs of those individuals. And I think what's important here as well is when you become a nurse, you're not just focusing on ill health, but it's focusing on health promotion and recovery. So there are 4 different branches of nursing. So every registered nurse has to choose one as part of their degree. So we've got adult nursing, mental health nursing, nursing children, and nursing people with a learning disability. So you've made your choice, but it doesn't mean that that's your career forever. I've met lots of people, for example, who trained as adult nurses and they've gone on to do their mental health training as well. So they're registered twice on the register. But here in Aberystwyth, we're just offering the following branches, which is adult nursing and mental health nursing, due to commence in September 2022. So for adult nursing, there'll be 35 places, and for mental health nursing, there'll be 15 places. However, just going to add that within the curriculum, we will be adding elements of children nursing and learning disability so that our adult and mental health students have some experience and theory around those areas of nursing. So this is the nursing degree structure. So as you can see at the top, we've got the adult nursing in the light blue and the mental health nursing in the light green. And then modules in both columns are common to both schemes. So in year one, you can see that all students are together when they're on their theory within the university. Then you can see as we move on to the second year, the students go to their field-specific areas. And then towards the end of the second year, they're brought back together again. And likewise, in the third year, the students are together at the beginning for their theory. And then towards the end, it's about going specific to fields then to get ready and prepare to become autonomous practitioners.
Can I jump in there with you? Just to explain to everybody, so where you see module 4, 8 and 12 on that, that's called a longitudinal module, and if you notice, those credits are far more than what the other modules. Now that module in particular is to do with your practice placement, so when you're out in clinical practice, so there's 3 placement opportunities throughout any one academic year. So you'll have 3 placements in year 1, 3 placements in year 2 and 3 placements in year 3. So that's what those what we call longitudinal modules are throughout the 3 years. Thanks, Bleddyn.
Okay, so I make reference to the theory. So 50% of your time is spent on theory in the classrooms, and then 50% is out in practice in the clinical areas, be that an inpatient area, community setting. But also with this degree programme, we're working closely with our colleagues and partners in the third sector, for example, for some shorter placements to complement your larger placements in the community. Wednesday is not a teaching day, it's more of a self-directed day and a well-being day. As I said, there is an emphasis on partnership working, so we'll be drawing other people in, other agencies in as part of the teaching and education experience within the department. And also when it comes to placement, we are working with 3 health boards, which is Betsy Cadwaladr Health Board, which covers North Wales, and then Powys Teaching Health Board that covers Mid Wales, and obviously Hywel Health Board then that covers West Wales. However, if there was a very specialist placement experience a student would want to have, we have got some arrangements elsewhere, for example with Swansea Bay, who could arrange some of those opportunities. So is that anybody got, obviously I can't see the chat bars this going on, so hopefully there are some questions coming in.
So, we'll invite questions as we go along, so please do post them if you've got any questions specific to what Bleddyn and Amanda are talking through. But if you carry on, Bleddyn, for the moment, and if something comes through, then I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so some key things to note: that the Health Education Centre at Aberystwyth is a brand new department. Another key thing to note is that the department capacity prior to sort of COVID was at a certain capacity, and that's reduced now with restrictions. But there's space here for smaller teaching groups and one-to-one sessions, and the lead lectures that was on that timetable in those modules would be held on the main campus, which is just across, it's a very short walk across the road. Amanda is working with the people in the department who do the timetabling, so that if students need to be on the main campus, that they're on the main campus for the best part of the day rather than have to come back to the Health Education Centre. The Health Education Centre itself houses the Clinical Skills Unit, which is the state-of-the-art simulation suite. We've also developed a community scene. It's interesting because we've had lots of discussions from when you've been working on an inpatient area and with a very sterile clinical area, and then when you go out to the community into someone's home, it can be very different. We're also developing a virtual family, and they'll be introduced as in year 1, and they'll be introduced with perhaps sort of more minor health conditions, that something around their physical health or mental health. And then as we go into year 2 and 3, as we develop, we'll be discussing these individuals as their conditions deteriorate. So by year 3, they might have a very serious health problem. And we'll be drawing those into the lectures as well as we teach. And obviously our Aberystwyth University webpage, there's a section for the Health Education Centre. There's an events section which has got taster events, some community engagement events. You can also book on there for the open days, which are the 9th of October confirmed, and then probably the 6th of November. There is a section there on finance as well. Most of you don't know about this course is commissioned by Health Education and Improvement Wales. One thing we need to point out there, as it's commissioned, that once people register after completing the course, there is a requirement to continue to work in Wales then for 2 years. That's after you registered with the Nursing and Midwifery Council and have your PIN number. If I move on to this one, this is a digital artist drawing of what one of our clinical skills room will look like. So Chantel, who you introduced at the beginning, is working hard at the moment now with her colleagues to ordering the equipment ready so that we get the department ready. Okay, so obviously we're in Aberystwyth in West Wales. Most of the teaching staff here speak Welsh, and probably some of the students coming will be speaking Welsh as their chosen language. So we are very lucky in the position that personal tutors can speak Welsh. And there is an emphasis to promote the Welsh language, and there are lots of opportunities to learn to speak Welsh. However, we are developing a coffee and chat corner where it's just looking at some basic words. So if you're working and on a placement in a hospital, that you might understand some words. So that's really being promoted. Also, there's been some creativity around sort of the programme and bringing different things in. So there's lots of evidence out there now and research around pet therapy. So carrier pet therapy from Pembrokeshire will be coming to the centre. There's a local college, Coleg Ceredigion, so they've offered to do some automotive training for the student nurses because we do work in a very rural part of the country. Sometimes there's no phone signal, so what happens if you need to change your spare wheel, etc. Then from the way the course has been commissioned and agreed through the processes, there's an element of engaging with the community. So what we've decided is that we'll be developing a gardening project. So there are spaces within the university, but there are also places within the community, and we've had recent discussions with Mind, for example. They have a garden and a gardening project, so students on the course can link in with some of these projects to contribute to the community. And we've got the lifeboat and the mountain rescue there. The aim is that by the end of year 3 that we can have a simulated major incident with the facilities we've got here in our clinical suite. So there are new standards for nursery and midwifery education in Wales. They were developed in 2018 and came in last year. It's once for Wales. So that does specify the knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, values and behaviours registered nurses must demonstrate to deliver safe care. That's about being the compassionate and effective person-centred care for now and in the future. So it does give us the guidance and the principles really for delivering the education and developing our future nursing workforce across Wales. Admissions are now open, so applications are via ICAS. We have got student selection days commencing in early December. So people who are shortlisted and invited for interview, that interview will be broken down into sessions where there'll be a presentation, an individual clinical task, a group discussion, and a one-to-one interview. And they will be held at the Health Education Centre. And we'll also give a tour of the department. So there'll be a morning session and an afternoon session. So detailed information, so the overview, the teaching and learning and the entry requirements are all on our Health Education Centre web pages. So that's our email address. So that comes into our nursing inbox and is checked regularly. So if you've got anything after today that you want to ask us, any queries, please do email us and we'll respond as soon as we can. Okay, so thank you.
Then that's fantastic. Really great introduction there, and it's triggered quite a few questions through from the audience. I wonder whether we can just cover off some of them. We may repeat some of the a couple of the responses that Amanda and Chantal have shared already, but I think it's quite useful to reiterate some of them if that's okay. Perhaps we could just take the first question from Sean, who was asking how many, obviously with the numbers that have been shared in terms of places, how many applications do you expect to receive? And Sean's question is particularly around adult nursing. So I don't know who would like to take that question.
I'm happy to come in on that one, Rob. So at the moment, we've had a great deal of interest, obviously, through some of the engagement events that we've held already and offered out. We've had lots of questions come into our nursing inbox already who are interested in either doing adult or mental health fields of nursing. As we're a new programme, it's difficult to tell as yet how many applications we're looking at. So our main admissions team within the university, the system will go across to the new one from next week. So we'll be able to download it every evening at midnight to see how many applications are coming in so far. So we will be looking at individuals' personal statements, what they include within that, what transferable skills they can hold within that, and ensuring that they meet also the UCAS points or that they meet the entry requirements. But what I would say is if anybody's worried about the combination that they may have in relation to meeting the entry requirements, do drop us an email. Bleddyn and my colleague Angharad, who's not here tonight, they're both our admissions tutors as well, so they'll be able to have that discussion with you and meet you via Teams if needs be, or email contact, and they'll be able to advise you if you meet those entry requirements or whether you would benefit from doing anything additional, some additional studies to ensure that you can meet that criteria.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Amanda. And so just coming back to the questions as well, I know that Chantal, you've reassured Chelsea that you don't need to be able to speak Welsh to be able to apply. But there is a question from Esther about the how the Welsh curriculum differs from the English an English curriculum, an English university. So is there anything that you can share on that, please, for Esther?
Yeah, no problem. I'll jump in there if that's okay. So in relation to Wales, we have a Once for Wales, which Bleddyn talked about, which means that there's an all Wales approach to nurse education within Wales. So every university within Wales that delivers nurse education has to follow the same principles, and that's everything from their student selection. So student selection are what we call the student interviews. So they all have this, although they may do things slightly different, it's the same principles. And Bleddyn and Angharad as admissions tutor sit on the All Wales admissions group. I sit on the All Wales pre-registration nursing group. So that means that we all talk together and that we're all doing the same thing as not to disadvantage any student. So any documents such as your practice assessment documents, which we call the PAD, which are your learning outcomes when you're in clinical practice, that's an All Wales approach. So regardless of in Wales where you're studying, all your documentation will be the same. So England are doing things slightly different and they're developing their practice assessment documents, but we're guided by Welsh Government in Wales and Health Education and Information Wales, which we have to stick to.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Amanda. We've got some more questions here. Bleddyn, I just wanted to check in with you. Do you want to keep going with the questions, or did you want to sort of come back to those in a moment? What's your preference?
What we would, if we come back to them in a bit, because what Amanda was going to do is talk about being a registered nurse.
Yeah, I'm
What's
happy
it like?
to do. Yeah, absolutely. So, so I'm now the scheme coordinator within Aberystwyth University, and like I said earlier on, I've been a registered nurse for nearly 30 years. So I did my nurse training many years ago, started off in Bronglais Hospital in Aberystwyth as a student nurse. And when I registered, I went to work on the children's ward in Carmarthen Hospital. So I worked there for around 7 years and then had a junior sister's job in NHS Direct. So the telephone advice line, some of you have probably heard of that. Within a year, I then had my senior sister's job, and I stayed there for 4 years and then left to do my health visiting training. So I think the important thing that I want to get across to you all today is the field of nursing that you choose. There are so many opportunities that you can go down, so please don't think that you're going to be stuck in the community or stuck in a hospital setting working for years. There are so many opportunities for you to develop. So when I qualified as a health visitor, I went to work in a Flying Start area. So working with hard to reach, high deprivation and poverty, substance and alcohol misuse, working very high safeguarding child protection needs. So when I deliver my teaching, I bring a lot of that knowledge and skills into the teaching that I do. So after I did my health visiting, so I was 30 years old when I went to do my health visiting. And then after I did my health visiting, I worked for a while. Then I changed and went to work with disabled and terminally ill children as a senior nurse, covering the whole of the county there. After about 3 years, I found my heart was pulled back into health visiting, and I did that for a while longer before transferring to work in a university setting. So I've been working in a university setting, supporting student nurses. This is my 8th year in academia. So it was about nearly 3 years ago that I graduated with my master's, and just before then I did my PGCE. So I was working full-time as a lecturer and studying my PGCE part-time, and the day I handed my PGCE in, I started my master's course and did that for 3 years. So I'm now 46, so I want to just encourage anybody that it's never too late to start studying. So there's always opportunities for you to develop yourselves. So as well as being, I'm what they call dual trained. So as well as being a registered nurse, I'm a registered health visitor, I'm a registered nurse prescriber, and I'm also an official registered teacher with the Nursing and Midwifery Council. As part of my health visiting, I also became a qualified baby masseur. So I hope to incorporate some of that. So anybody who was thinking around children's nursing, hoping to incorporate that into some of our sessions within our curriculum as well. And I'm also registered parenting officer in supporting. So a lot of these skills that we have, and they are just my skills, let alone all the skills that Bleddyn has, that Angharad has, that Sally, who's our principal lead, has. But there's huge opportunities for you. So when you register as a nurse, you become a staff nurse in the first instance, but there are opportunities for you to develop then to become junior sisters, senior sisters or charge nurses, clinical nurse specialists. If you prefer to go into research, you can become a research nurse. You can do some additional training like I did to become a health visitor. You could become a school nurse. You could become an advanced nurse practitioner or an occupational health nurse. So you could go into an industry or a company to work as the nurse within that company. So there are so many avenues that you can explore and go into, and some, even though you're tied in with the commissioning to work in Wales for 2 years, we'd like and hope that you would stay in Wales, but there are other opportunities that if you wanted to go internationally or abroad, there's those opportunities for you to explore as well. And we're hoping to make links in the future with other universities in other countries as well, so that we can share those experiences and knowledge with those universities as well. I think that's enough from me. Have we got questions, Rob?
Well, we have indeed, yes. So if it's a good time to take some of those, there's quite a few coming through. So it's brilliant to have everyone's questions here. But there was some questions about choice. Is a placement abroad possible? I know you're talking about universities abroad, and also choosing your health board, where you can do your placements. What would you say to students asking there?
So the placements abroad that you're talking about are called Erasmus placements. So at the moment, because we're in a new programme, we haven't set up those opportunities as yet. But although we're conscious that this programme won't start until September next year, so there are opportunities, and we are scoping those opportunities for students with our international office at the moment. So what was the other part of the question again, Rob, about placements, was it?
Yeah, so so this is from Zach, the previous one was Olivia, but Zach is asking, are you able to choose your preferred health boards to do placements in?
Okay, so we have agreements, Zach, with Betsy Cadwaladr, Powys and Hywel Dda Health Board. So we do like students to have a variety of placement experience, and that might be within other health boards as well. Now, what I would be keen to say to individuals is, obviously, if somebody's got commitments or they're caring for somebody, or there's a specific reason that you wouldn't be able to go and maybe do a placement in another area, my door is open as the programme lead, and I'd be more than happy to have that discussion with you, because at the end of the day, we're there to support you as well. So we need to meet your needs, but we also need to make sure that you have a variety of placements. What I should say as well is that your placement opportunities, if for example that you were residing or either in Aberystwyth, or that you were a student that's got accommodation within the university in Aberystwyth, if you were allocated a placement maybe in Powys area, then we're able to fund the accommodation for you whilst you're in that placement capacity. So we wouldn't expect you, for example, even if you're a driver and you've got a car, if that journey is likely to be an hour or more to that placement area, we wouldn't expect you to drive to that placement area. We could support you with accommodation, and we're actually working with our registry team at the moment. They're scoping all bed and breakfast, Airbnbs within the different localities to ensure that you're supported safely. And what I should say as well is, while you're out on your clinical placements, you're not just left to it. So there's a link lecturer to every placement area. So you can either contact your personal tutor within the university, you can contact a link lecturer, or there's also practice education facilitators. They're called in some health boards, or education liaison nurses, and they're based on sites as well, and they can support you. So if we wouldn't want anybody to worry whilst they're on placement, we will be touching base and keeping in contact with you regularly.
Fantastic, thank you. And Keris is asking how long you've been in your roles for. So we've got a really good understanding of your experience, both yours and Bleddyn. And I guess a lot of your current role has been preparing for the 2022 intake, but maybe you could tell us a bit about that, Amanda, and potentially Bleddyn as well.
Yeah, so like I said, I've worked in academia for the last 8 years. So when I left my last post, I was supporting 75 personal students. So I've got lots of experience in supporting students and supervising students over the years. I started up in Aberystwyth on the 1st of March, so very apt on St David's Day. I started this year up in the university, and like Rob said, we're really busy. We're engaging with the community. We're opening up our doors now to taster events, open days. We want to encourage you to come and have a look around. Come and meet us as a team. Come and see the facilities as well. So, Bleddyn, do you want to talk a little bit about when you started?
Yeah, so I started quite a while ago as well now. It feels like a long time. It's around 25 years. And similar to Amanda, really, I started on an inpatient unit, and back then the grading of the different roles was very different. So I started as a basic NID on an acute inpatient ward for adults with mental health problems. But I stayed there for a while and got to the post of charge nurse. And then I moved to work in the community. So I've worked in various roles in the community, did some specialist work around early intervention for psychosis, and did some BSc in psychosocial interventions for psychosis. I've had lots of other opportunities and done some postgraduate studying as well. I've been involved with lots of project management, for example, when we had additional funding in Wales for dementia, about setting up services. So what I'd say about my career, it's been very rewarding. There have been difficult moments, and I've got no regrets choosing it as a career. And I really much do enjoy working with service users and carers and patients with a focus on recovery. So my last post was as a senior nurse in the community for adult mental health, but I've only recently joined the team now on the 1st of September this year. So lots of new things for me to learn, but I have got a couple of decades, experience in mental health. I kept up to date with sort of the evidence based around the interventions, and how interventions have changed so much in the 2 decades I've been doing it, where we were very much focused on inpatient care, and now we're very much more about sort of home treatment and keeping people in their home. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And so Pat has asked, and this is probably just to clarify for Pat, why the interview stroke selection event is before the UCAS deadline. But I think the session in October is very much about preparing for an interview stroke selection event, as opposed to it actually being the actual one. So it'd be a similar session to this, just to help you. And maybe Amanda, perhaps you could tell us about when that selection event would be.
Yeah, so our first official student selection event will be in December. So we're just finalising, so that's just the first of many. So we'll be running our first one, although the UCAS closing date won't be until the end of January, but we have to start our selection event sooner. As part of our selection events, it's not only the academic staff that will be there, there'll be clinical staff, so real nurses and practitioners who are out in the hospital, the community settings, they come along as well. So we have to book a variety of clinical staff in advance, and we also include service users and carers and public involvement, and that's a huge part of the requirements for any nursing programme. So we're also setting up a service user, carer and public involvement network at the moment. So that will involve anybody who may be from anything. We're all service users because we all access healthcare or see our GP at some point, but it may be somebody with some additional needs such as a learning disability. It may be a parent of a child that has a long-term illness, for example, or it may be a carer of somebody that has an illness or a long-term condition. So we encourage them to be part of our selection events as well. So more selection events will then run through, once UCAS closes, some will run in January right through to the beginning of February. So that's when we will start making offers then in the new year.
That's brilliant. And I might just jump to Sian's question here then. If you are running these selection events starting in December, is there any benefit in the, does that favour people that apply early?
What I would say is the earlier you apply, the better, because if you go through and if you're offered to come to a selection event and that you meet the criteria and that you score highly within that selection event, they are going to be the first individuals that we make the offers to, understandably, because we want to be individuals' first choice to come to study at Aberystwyth University. I think the important thing to consider as well is, although it's only a cohort of 50, it's a small cohort, so we're able to provide additional support where needed. And then those students, as you go along, when the second cohort come in, then you'll become student ambassadors for us within, so you'd be involved in the student selection event. So you can talk to prospective candidates and tell them, look, this is how I felt, I did this, and it helped me get through to a selection event, or it helped me get a place on the course as well. So there's opportunities for you to become involved in, and peer mentoring as well, supporting those students when they're out in practice, when you're out there as well, because you'll be the seniors to them.
Great, thank you very much, Amanda. I might just go across to Chantal here. You responded to a question about the open day to Chelsea. There was also the question from Sean about what those open days look like with respect to the pandemic, and also the linking the pandemic to the start of the course next year. So Chantal, I don't know whether you're happy to give a bit more of a feel for open days and what that might look like.
Okay. Yeah, no, not a problem at all. So COVID has changed lots of things in lots of different ways. So with regards to open days, they're being run very differently to how they would have been run 2 years ago. So it's very much a case of you need to book on. There's morning events and there's afternoon events. And from my understanding from the main university campus, they are limiting numbers as to how many people are in each talks and on each tours. With regards to nursing, we're having a morning talk on the main campus and an afternoon talk on the main campus. And then those people will be invited over to our main healthcare education building. And then we can walk everybody through so everybody can see what's going on, and then walk them back to campus so they can then take part in other activities that are happening on campus, such as talks with accommodation, talks with library, visiting the arts centre, visiting the student facilities. So there's a whole range of things happening. It's not as full-on bonkers as open days are, and I'm sure some people have appreciated the going to them previously. So it's slightly different, but it's going to be COVID friendly. So it's, you know, usual thing, face masks, hand sanitizing, and all that jazz. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you very much for that, Chantal. Dylan is asking about can you complete and study in Welsh, and what would that look like when it comes to lectures? So Amanda, would you like to respond to Dylan?
Yeah, absolutely. So any applicant that's a fluent Welsh speaker will automatically be allocated a Welsh speaking personal tutor. And where possible, we then match them to Welsh speaking practice assessors and practice supervisors. So they used to be called mentors out in clinical practice, and under the new educational standards, they're now called practice supervisors and practice assessors. So we match them where possible on placement with a Welsh speaker there. All the documentation that we use is bilingual, so you're more than welcome to complete it through the medium of Welsh. What we offer within the university is that 50% of the programme is offered through the medium of Welsh, and that's through mostly the practice placements. So whilst you're welcome to submit all your academic work through the medium of Welsh, should you wish to do so, there's also opportunities that anybody who wants to submit academic work through the medium of Welsh, you can apply for an Aberystwyth University scholarship to have some extra monies there. But you can submit your academic work. At the moment, we're not offering lead lectures through the medium of Welsh, but there are opportunities that you can undertake your student selection events. So your interview you can have through the medium of Welsh if you prefer. There will be opportunities that you may be able to have some small group work through the medium of Welsh. Your one-to-one tutorials with your personal tutor would be through the medium of Welsh. And again, any practice placement support would be offered through the medium of Welsh.
Brilliant, that's very helpful. Thank you, Amanda. We covered Nicola's question about the number of intakes. Arwell was asking about the latest date to apply, which I think you covered, but I suppose theoretically there is clearing as well. Perhaps you could share something on that?
Yeah, so at the moment we've given a cut-off date for Blethin. I think it's the 15th of January, isn't it? Although UCAS has extended its closing date more towards the end of January, but we've given a cut-off for the 15th because it means that we have to go through those applications to match them in relation to the UCAS tariff, and also to be able to invite them to a selection event as well. Now, anybody that's offered a place on the nursing course also has to go through a DBS screening, so disclosure and barring, like a criminal record check. But please, if anybody's got anything on there, please don't automatically think, well, that's it, I can't apply for nursing. Please contact us and speak to us first, because if it's something that happened 20 years ago, maybe, we do have what we call a fitness to practice panel and a fitness to study panel, and it may need to be referred, but please don't think that that stops your options. You'll also need to go through occupational health clearing to ensure that you're safe, because it's a professional programme as well, and we're governed by the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So when you become a registered nurse, you'll go on to the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council register. So we need to ensure that you're safe to be out there supporting members of the community and members of the public as well.
Great, thank you very much. I might come across to Blethin now. So we have a question about so it's an emotionally challenging experience and course. So how are students prepared for that, Blethin? And supported, I guess.
Yeah, so as Amanda mentioned, the personal tutors. So all students we allocated a personal tutor. So that regular contact, one-to-one. We've got again, Amanda mentioned the practice education facilitators, for example, out in practice who link in with the students, but also our working environments, our clinical environments, our leaders, our compassionate leaders, and they're looking out for the staff and the students. And clinical supervision is of extreme importance as a student, and they'll be having that in practice with their practice assessors and supervisors. And for me, as a registered nurse, you know, it's been ongoing throughout my career, having clinical supervision from my line manager, and that's where I've had the opportunities to discuss times when it has been emotionally challenging or very difficult, and that surrounds my working life, but also aspects of my personal life that might affect my work. So I think there's a very strong emphasis on that sort of supervision in practice.
We do have a student support service as well within the university, and they're registered mental health practitioners as well. So even as a student, if you felt that you didn't want to approach your personal tutor, or maybe you did want to approach your personal tutor, we can also signpost you to the support services within the university as well. And if needs be, we can ensure that there are action plans in place to support you during that period. So if you're out on placement, or if you're struggling with your academic work, we've got support services and mechanisms within the university to ensure that you are supported. We're not there to set you up to fail, we're there to support you.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the question, Caris. We're coming close to time here, but it'd be really good to be able to cover off people's questions that are already in the chat. So we do understand that if anyone does need to leave at this point, then that's fine. But are the team happy at Aberystwyth just to cover off the questions that we already have in the chat?
Yeah, fine, no problem.
Yes.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So, thank you, Zach, for sharing your thoughts and excitement about sort of getting experience in larger hospitals. That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. We've covered the question about the open days. So, Sarah, you were saying that you've heard a bit about the bursary for nursing and you've looked into it, but not quite sure that you understand it. Could you explain how it works, please? Any thoughts or anything you can share around the bursary?
Yeah, so for the bursaries, there's a link on our university webpage because it's such a minefield in relation to bursaries. So every nursing student is given, because they're commissioned places, so you don't pay for your university study fees, so that's paid for through HNIW, Health Education and Improvement Wales, and every successful nursing student is given a non-means tested £1,000 bursary per year. Now, if you have commitments such as you have dependents such as children, or that you're caring for a partner, there are other parts of the bursary that you're able to apply for. So if you pop onto our Health Education Centre web pages, there'll be links that you can find there in relation to the Welsh bursaries, and they'll be able to answer your questions more specific than we will be able to. But feel free to drop us an email if you've got any additional questions after that.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for the question, Sarah. So we've had a question about whether previous care experience is necessary. So is that a requirement?
Absolutely not, no. We give you the basic skills. So what we're looking at is somebody that can demonstrate that they're caring and they've got compassion, and that you're committed to undertake the course and support your service users. So you don't need to have any care experience. I've supported so many students over the years who have never touched a patient, never cared for anybody within their family. But if you think about your transferable skills, if you've got a pet, that's transferable caring skills because you're caring for them. If you've helped a neighbour or a grandparent where you've gone and done a bit of shopping for them, these are all transferable skills. If you've worked in a shop, if you've done scouts, again, think about what you've done, or if you've done any voluntary work, or it might be that you've had work experience somewhere. These are all transferable skills that you can use within your application. And if you join our webinar next week, Angharad will go through, and it'll be myself with Angharad as well, to talk about the important things that you need to consider within your application. And then I think it's on the 20th, and I will cover with you how to prepare for your student selection event. So what you need to consider for your interview.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Hannah, for that question. We dealt with Sian's question around open days. Olivia is asking if you're struggling with the course, with aspects of the course such as revision. So you talked about the support network that's there and the facilities that are there. With academic support, is that sort of included within the same support structure?
So again, there will be additional support from personal tutors. So we will be having one-to-one tutorials. So if, for example, one of my students is saying, Amanda, I really don't get this assignment at all, I don't understand, I will sit down with you, as I'm sure any of the personal tutors were, and we'll break it down and go through it until you're sure that you understand the path that you're going. For anybody who may have any additional learning needs, or if there's any dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, then we would encourage you to be open about that as soon as you're offered a place, so that we can get the support in place for you from the university. And that might mean from our student support services that you might be offered a specialist tutor to support you through your academic studies. So please don't think that if you do have additional learning needs that this course is not possible, because it is. But if you're struggling throughout the course, keep communicating with your personal tutor, or coming to myself as the scheme coordinator, and we'll be more than happy to make sure that there's that additional support in place for you.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Next question. So Chelsea is asking, if we already have a DBS, do we have another one done through the university?
Unfortunately, yes. It's a requirement that when you have a DBS done, that is only for the area that you're working at the time, and for the time that you had it done. So an individual may develop a criminal record after they've had their first DBS done. So it's part of our policies that we have to undertake a new DBS when you start within the university.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that response. I think we've got some questions about changing from one open day to another. So that was Dylan was asking how to go about doing that. Is that straightforward?
Doing what, sorry?
So Dylan is asking, I've booked the open day on the 9th, but I'm unable to make it. How do I go about changing the date to the 6th of November?
So the 6th, drop us an email, Dylan, to the nursing inbox, and we can sort that out for you, no problem.
Brilliant. Well, I think we are very much at time, and I think we've covered all of the questions, either through responses in the chat or yeah. What if you? So the last one, there was last two, and then that's all. But Zach is saying this back to DBS. But what if your DBS is on the update service? And Sean is asking, does the university pay for our DBS?
Yeah, so good questions actually. So your DBS, if it's on the update service, they would access it from there to be able to get that information. Sian, I don't know the answer if the university pay for your DBS, to be honest. Sian, can you drop us an email to the nursing inbox, and Chantal can pick that up. If that's okay, Chantal, you can find that out with the registry and let her know.
We would really like to thank you for the massive amount of really fantastic questions that I think will have helped everyone in this session. So brilliant. Thank you for everyone that shared those. So I think we're coming to the end of the session, and perhaps Bleddyn, as you sort of introduced the session at the beginning, is there anything final you'd like to say to the group of students that are with us today?
Just what you said, Rob, really excellent questions, great discussion. We're glad so many people joined us this evening, and look forward to meeting you. Hopefully meet some of you in person at some of the selection events here. So thank you everybody for your contribution.